Hello there. Are you thinking of going HF portable? Well, so am I. So why don't you join me and I'll tell you what I'm going to use. It may give you some ideas as well. Well, hello once again and welcome to the Waters and Stanton video channel. If you've been watching this channel or following this channel over the last few weeks, you'll know that I recently sold my holiday cottage in Scotland after about 25 years. I've had some great times up there, but it was time to sell it and establish something a bit closer to home, and I chose Suffolk as an interesting county. I've always had an affinity for Suffolk and Norfolk actually, but I decided to set up a small holiday home on a holiday park in Suffolk, and this meant I needed to rethink my ham radio gear that I was going to use when I was there. Well, I haven't actually moved in yet. It's likely to be completed in the next couple of weeks, and when I operate portable I tend to migrate to QRP. The reason being that because it's so convenient and it's by definition very, very portable. I'm not quite sure what I shall use long term, but anyway, I decided that I'd set up a portable station, and over the last few days I've been preparing things, and I thought I'd run through the things that I've done and what I'm going to use for my first operation in Suffolk at this portable location. And I wanted to try and give you some hints and tips as I go along, and also show that it's basically a simple operation, can be quite enjoyable. Now, I should say that I do tend to operate quite a bit of CW when I'm portable, again because it's very effective. It's probably almost as good as FT8, and certainly it's quicker at exchanging information, and of course, unlike FT8, you can actually have a contact and exchange quite a bit of information. You can rag you on CW if you want to, or you can make it fairly short. So I do tend to operate CW for those reasons. Anyway, let me just take you through what I've been preparing and what I plan to use, and you may get some tips. I mean, it's not the be all and end all of QRP operation, because with QRP there's lots and lots of choices, so I can just tell you what I'm going to use for my first trip. Anyway, let's run through it. I've chosen to use the Xiegu X6100. It's a 5-watt transceiver covering 160 metres to 6 metres, and with an external supply you get 10 watts output. And very importantly, it's got an internal antenna tuner unit, and a very effective one as well. And on both side cheeks there's connectors for DC supply, microphone, key, accessories, and one or two other bits and pieces. Now, I recently went to IKEA and I found these two items in a package for the princely sum of £2, and I suddenly thought this would be a great support for the X6100. You can see me putting it together here. And then we take the X100, we place it on this convenient shelf, and we've got a nice desktop X100 ready for my QRP operation. For CW operation, I opted for one of the budget high mount paddle keys, which I mounted on a piece of wood for even more economy. The radio also comes with a very comprehensive fist mic with lots of buttons. You just have to remember which button does what. And talking about remembering things, I stuck this photocopy onto the support, because on the top of the radio you've got buttons which change the mode, that change the band, switch the preamp in, switch the tuner on, so it's handy to have a memo in front of you. If you happen to have a mobile home based on the Fiat Ducato van, then there's a handy flap on the dashboard that pulls up and allows you to support the radio. I must dust this dashboard though. For transporting the radio and keeping it safe, I had this case which I used for another QRP radio a few years ago. For an external portable power supply, I use the Jackery, which I've used for quite a few years now. But I very often run the radio from its internal battery, and a couple of hours in the morning and a couple of hours in the afternoon, that battery will see you through with no problems at all. Now when it comes to an aerial, my favourite is the end-fed half-wave. I'll just do a quick sketch on a bit of paper to remind those that are not familiar with it. On the left-hand side is the point where we feed the antenna, and we install a 49:1 UmUm, and then we measure out a length of wire which is a half-wave long on a frequency. My favourite is 40 metres because a 20-metre length of wire is resonant as a half-wave on 40, and the harmonics it will work on is 20 metres, 15 metres and 10 metres. It's very easy to make your own UmUm. You need a 240-43 ferrite core, which you can pick up for about £6 or £7. I put 14 turns of tin copper wire straight on the core, crossing over at the halfway point, in other words the 7-turn point, to the other side of the core. Designate the earth side and then direct solder an input 2 turns up from that earth point. And then I soldered a couple of 220 puff in series capacitors, each rated at 2 kV across that input. I will put a link below where you'll get more details of how to make this UmUm in a separate video I published about a year ago. For temporary weatherproofing, I would recommend cling film. It's very cheap, very effective, and this has been out in my garden for 6 months during the winter. Obviously you need to test the system out before you go outside and test it for real, because the last thing you want to do is find something that doesn't work. And also when you go out portable, you need to make sure that you've got everything you need. It's quite amazing how you can leave things behind, essential things like your microphone, or you forgot to put the aerial in the car or whatever. So do make sure you've got everything. Now HF portable operation can be done at various levels. You can run 100 watts if you like and work the DX and all sorts of things, but a lot of people do enjoy running portable operation where they're running purely on perhaps an internal battery, and it's quite amazing how much you can work just with low power of 5 watts. Now from home here I often go on 40 metres on the 40 metre QRP channel, which is nominally a 7.030 megahertz. There's usually 1 or 2 stations around there, and it's quite amazing what good signals are. There's 5, 8, 5, 9 signals sometimes coming through from just 5 watts. I worked 2 stations the other night, both using FT817s, both very good signals. And that was around about 7 o'clock in the evening on 40 metres. So it's 5 watts is more than enough to do all sorts of things. And of course if you operate on the higher bands, particularly at the moment if you operate on 10 metres, it's very easy to work the states on 10 metres with just 5 or 10 watts. There's no problem at all, when the band is open of course. And if you migrate to CW, and I would encourage you, if you don't operate CW, to consider it, because it is a very interesting mode and it's a skill that's worth learning, and you can winkle out some interesting stations and have some interesting DX contacts even when the power is low and even when the signals are sort of just a bit on the edge. You can read CW quite well. Anyway, that's a subject for probably another video anyway. Now when it comes to aerials, it's a question of making do with what you've got or what you can erect. Now I tend to favour the end-fed half-wave because there's very few occasions when you can't run it out. Sometimes I've used a shorter one, I've used a 20 metre half-wave, but the problem with that is you can only cover 20 metres and 10 metres. I've often run the half-wave along the top of a hedge. It's what, 6 or 7 foot above the ground, but it works. Now it's not going to work as well as it would if it was high up in the air, but probably for portable operation you're not going to have that luxury unless you've got a tree and you can throw the wire over it. The alternative is a vertical, but I've never really been a fan of verticals for portable operation. 2 reasons. First of all, when you use a vertical, particularly if you're going to operate say on 40 metres, you're going to lose signal strength because a vertical tends to radiate low angle radiation, which doesn't favour conditions on 40 metres when you're likely to be out and about. It will work on the HF bands, but the other problem is you've got to lay down radials, and if you want to get a decent performance from a vertical, you've got to lay down a number of radials. It's no good just putting a copper rod in the ground and hope, or one radial out and hope for the best. It just won't work, or at least it won't work very efficiently. You'll lose signal strength. The big thing about QRP operation is that you don't want to lose signal. So I tend to favour a horizontal wire of some form. It always seems to produce, for me anyway, far better results. Now if you're looking for a mast, I would suggest the spider mast. We sell spider masts. They're not the cheapest, but they are the ones that will last a long time. They are really made of sort of a fairly thick fiberglass material, and I've had one of these now for about 5 years and no problems at all. You can get cheaper telescopic masts, but the cheaper ones won't last so long. So probably after a couple of years you're going to find that something breaks, or it doesn't work, or it jams, and therefore you're going to have to buy another one, and 2 cheap ones equate to 1 more expensive one. So the choice is yours. There we are. But aerials, it's part of the fun, isn't it? Part of the fun, erecting an aerial and finding the one that works for you. But I hope that it's given you some idea. And as I said before, you can use anything you like for QRP. I mean, you know, I've used the Xiegu 6100 because I happen to have it at the moment. The FT817 is a popular one. FT818, unfortunately, they're discontinuing that, if they haven't already discontinued now. You can go a bit more deluxe and use the IC705, which is a very, very nice radio. But a lot of QRP operators want to not only operate low power, but operate on a sort of a fairly sort of, you know, meagre sort of gear, you know, sort of just a few watts from a basic transceiver. You know, you don't need anything terribly sophisticated. Anyway, I hope it's given you some food for thought. If you've got any questions on gear and so forth, don't be shy of ringing up our guys down at Portsmouth. They'll be happy to guide you through, whether it's antennas or transceivers or microphones or maybe a Morse key. Oh yeah, that might be an interesting purchase, isn't it? A Morse key if you've never tried Morse before. Anyway, as I said before, that's another subject. In the meantime, thanks for your support on this channel, much appreciated. Don't forget to press the subscribe button. It does indicate to us, or to me anyway, how popular the channel is. And thank you for your support generally. In the meantime, enjoy your ham radio. Hopefully the weather is going to be more favourable now as we approach spring. We're actually in spring, aren't we? Yeah. So time to get outside. Enjoy some portable operation. In the meantime, take care. And as usual, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.